Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. We're glad you're joining us. Got James Hayden, got Eric Naleen. Welcome in. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. It's the bye week. We're not stopping. And make sure you head to InsideTexas.com. Sign up. You join now. You'll get not only all the way through National Signing Day, all the different transfer portal stuff, you'll get the playoff run too, and I think that's what we are expecting to go over. But one of the things that we're looking at when it comes to the playoff run is snap counts. And one of the things I was able to post today over on Inside Texas was about defensive snap counts. And Eric, you made the point over on the Inside Texas message board that there's a lot of faith in Trey Moore, and justified faith. Still hasn't shown up in the stat sheet, but he still sees the field basically more than any other defensive lineman, either at edge or defensive tackle.
Yeah, I've defended him quite a bit this season, but to see that he has the most snaps on the field and that limited production, you can't entirely square the circle on that. He hasn't been nearly as productive. Now, he played his best game against Vanderbilt. That game set up very well with his experience and ability to play the run. But yeah, that lack of production is quite surprising given the fact that he has the most snaps on defense.
One of the things is everybody likes the shiny 5-star, and I get that. And Colin Simmons, man, he has made a lot of progress this year. But James, one of the things is, when you're against these types of teams that make a lot of hay out of like eye candy, it's nice to have someone who, playing in Conference USA, playing in the American, has seen these gimmick, for lack of a better term, gimmick offenses.
Yeah. Are you talking Trey Moore?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but to Eric's point, it has been a little disappointing seeing that he is getting the most reps of any of those edge guys. And I think for whatever reason, we've been talking about this the past couple of weeks, whether it be the step up in competition or, I mean, the tape showed that he was a great, edge rusher. We just haven't seen the disruption there. And the run defense, he's done all right, and he finally made some impact plays against Vandy. Yeah, I mean, I think let's hope to see some more impact from Moore down the stretch. But Colin Simmons has been by far the most impressive edge, and Anthony Hill. So I think it's just been a testament to their 5-star ratings. Those guys have been game breakers. So
now they are going to play running quarterbacks. The quarterbacks that can run the ball a lot upcoming, and playing disciplined off the edge is going to be something that Trey Moore has going for him. A&M's going to stick with Reed for sure. We're going to see some Lagway. Even Brock Vandegrift, Kentucky's quarterback, likes to run it. You go back, watch that game that they had versus Georgia. They ran him quite a few times. So, I think we're going to keep seeing Trey Moore. It says something good about him that he has the most snaps. The coaches obviously like his steady, consistent play. He just hasn't been the playmaker that we hope for. Meanwhile, Colin Simmons, in his limited snaps, he gets his way into the backfield, and you can't miss him when he's on the field.
One of the things I looked at, I called it essential personnel, and that's guys who have played 350 or more snaps. Trey Moore was at 304, but the guys who are at 350, Jalen Gilbo, Michael Taft, Anthony Hill, Malik Muhammad, Jahdae Barron.
Wait, where was Trey Moore at?
Trey Moore was at 304.
Oh, I thought he had the most snaps on the defense. Okay, so
no, he had the most snaps on the defensive line.
Most snaps on the defensive line. Okay, I was about to say.
Right.
All right. Yeah, so go over those essential guys again.
Jalen Gilbo, 350. Michael Taft, 367. Anthony Hill, 375. Malik Muhammad, 415. Jahdae Barron, 449.
Yeah,
so
all that makes sense.
That's the essential personnel. Like, that is your best secondary players, second-level players, maybe even your best defensive player, most likely your best defensive player, and Jahdae Barron. And then the guy who makes everything work, puts guys in the right places, in Michael Taft. I don't think there's any surprise there.
Taft is one of the best players on the defense too. He's not just a coach on the field.
Yeah,
he's the one that's interesting to me is Jalen Gilbo, and that speaks to them not really having a number 2 guy that they like to play there. that's a lot of snaps considering he's not always on the field when they switch up personnel, go to different looks. But when they're in nickel, he's the guy. Now, I did just find out today that they've moved Wardell Mack over to nickel, so that's not really going to impact this year, but that'll be something we monitor throughout the spring. But Gilbo's got another year, so that's good. But yeah, that's a lot of snaps for Gilbo, considering this time last year it was almost all Jahdae Barron.
Go ahead.
Another thing I noticed was just how many reps Muhammad's getting. I mean, they're playing him a lot. What did he have? Yeah, the second most of all the DBs. And I feel like it's been relatively quiet around the media sphere. People aren't talking about him a lot, but he's still doing his job, obviously playing quite well.
It's good when you're not talking about corners.
He's in one of those spots that, like, you get tackles, but you may not make plays. I mean, that seems to be what happens when you're looking at the Texas defensive backs. The only other thing that Texas is probably missing that they would like, and that's a result of some injuries, there's not another safety along with Taff, who's just a mainstay back there. And, of course, Derek Williams is out for the year. Makuba's been banged up. Call in Jelani McDonald, who played well. They had Jordan Johnson-Rubel see a good amount of action in, I think, Louisiana Monroe. But
what did you have Makuba at, 284 or something?
Makuba was 278, so like not far.
Yeah, and then he missed a full game last week. So I would consider Makuba as he was starting to play better and better every week too. It seemed like.
So let me see.
Luckily, he'll be back for Florida. At least that's the last we heard.
I think I can get this up with all the people we need to see on the screen, or at least I'll start with the D line because I went through the other guys. Trey Moore, Alfred Collins, 286, Barron Sorrell, 284, Vernon Broughton, 283, Jermaine Lole, 207, Colin Simmons, 202, Ethan Burke, 159, Bill Norton, 106. My main takeaway is that there can be draft picks, there can be All-Americans, there can be probably draft picks again, and Pete Kwiatkowski, whoever's at defensive tackle coach, they are going to rotate defensive linemen, and it works.
Yeah, you got to keep the big boys fresh. I'm surprised that Norton only has that many snaps. I definitely would have thought more in August, and really I would have thought more just watching them this season. But they got a good thing going on at D tackle with Vernon and Alfred Collins playing well, and Lole's coming on. Lole might work himself into a late round draft pick.
He's played some really good games, hadn't he, James?
Yeah, I mean, how about this D line? Like interior-wise, that was one of the biggest fears coming into the season, I think, for a lot of people who weren't maybe paying attention or following along our preseason coverage and stuff. But it shows that there's great rotation, and like y'all were saying, I feel like I see Norton out there a ton because it's just every guy they're putting in new bodies, and that's why people have struggled to run on us. I'm really just impressed by Colin Simmons only barely getting over 200 snaps, and he's put the impact he has so far, which really has just been quite impressive. He's lived up to the billing more so than we expected, I would say. I mean, an instant impact out of him. I mean, Ethan Burke also has done a lot of great stuff in the limited time, but it's just a testament to the depth, and that's what you're going to see year in and year out as we start to get farther into the Sark's reign here.
It's one of those things where even Simmons himself acknowledged, like, I got to get better against the run. I got to get better against all these things. And if he's saying that, the coaches obviously told him
that was always the question coming into the season. Everyone, how much is Colin Simmons going to play? Well, just tell me how he defends the run. It's all going to be dependent on that. And he hasn't been terrible at it by any stretch. Sometimes he plays it wrong, still makes the play. I thought, we've seen him play some with more discipline as they get deeper into the season. Vanderbilt was just not a game that sets up well for a wild Colt. You need a guy that's going to play a little bit more under control. But yeah, Collins, it was always going to come down to how well he played the run. Everybody wants the 5-star to start immediately. I like the way that they're doing it right now.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we'll see him develop as he gets older. Like right now, there has been a tendency where he's, thinking sack first. And when you play against a guy like, Pavia, the Italian Manziel, or you play against guys like Lagway, they're a little more of the running style. It's going to be harder for him to get his numbers, but that's why you see Trey Moore up there in his snap count, because he's so great against that kind of rope-a-dope, gimmicky, spread option offenses that we're going to be facing in the next few weeks, honestly.
And to Moore's credit, I mean, Justice Finkley was seeing those snaps last year. Moore took them. It's just how it works. You know, the best guys are going to play, and that's what's happening. And that's not to say Finkley's a bad player. It's just that Moore is who he is. Anything from this group right here? Looks like Benda and LaFau basically splitting it right down the middle at will. Jelani McDonald seeing a lot more. He's had a multifaceted role. Anything stick out to y'all? And then, of course, I put down there Maurice Blackwell, 121 snaps.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised Maurice only has that many snaps, but I mean, look, McDonald and LaFau are complete football players. All they're lacking is experience. Those guys, there's no hole in their game. They can cover, they can hit, they can run. They're smart, they're tough. Literally no weaknesses in their game. Pretty much strengths across the board. They just need a little bit more experience. The future is very bright with that second group. But I can't wait to see Makuba get back. We do expect him back for Florida. Last we heard. He was, like I said, he was starting to play really, really good football.
Anything there, linebacker wise or otherwise, for you, James?
I'm just really impressed with the foul. It was great to see him get an INT. Yeah, he's just been a beast. He's really come on this year. Makuba, like, obviously when he gets back, it's going to be even harder for Florida to throw it over the top on us. So I just think this defense really it goes 3 deep in a lot of these positions. Like, the depth chart is, you really see it when we get dinged up a little bit, that it's still, we're not really getting thrown on. So it's really been, it's the most complete unit on the team by far. And it's really shown when you look at the snap counts and you see these guys making impacts with, some Norton 100 snaps, or LaFau's lower on the snap list. Put it down, but I forget, there was a couple other guys that were low on snap counts, and then they're still making great impact when they get in there.
Yeah, if you go back to the offseason, Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon took a ton of heat pretty much all offseason. That was that in the defensive tackles were going to drop off dramatically. That was the concern. And, we said the concern was whether or not the defense would play as a whole, not that the individual groups had talent, were missing talent or coaching. You're seeing Gideon Joseph with the retooling of the secondary, being able to move Jahdae Bear in the corner was huge. Portal additions, portal subtractions were every bit as big as the additions. We knew coming in that they had the pieces to have a really good secondary. And right now they've got probably the best secondary in the country.
Yeah. Nuts.
I think a lot of the blame they got was focused on Washington, that game. And I've said this a lot, like, yeah, did they play great over the course of a season? Yeah. Were they volatile? Yes. Did they go against the best quarterback performance I've seen in a football game since Joe Burrow in Austin in 2019? Also, yes. And so these guys have proven they're good coaches, and it's playing out.
The 2022 secondary was good, though. I mean, maybe Gary Patterson deserves some credit for that, but that 2022 secondary was leaps and bounds better than the year before. It was, it was unrecognizable compared to the previous season. They struggled a little bit on 4th down, 3rd down, money down defense, but other than that, secondary was good, better than last year. You're right. Recency bias played a part in it with the Washington loss, but those guys I don't think nobody's complaining about them right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, statistically, they stack up Kobe Black. That's a good mention right there. Kobe Black finally gets some reps, and I mean, he didn't even play. Did he play 10 snaps on Saturday?
No, he played 9, but he played
9 snaps. He had an INT that got called back. He might have had a PBU, but Kobe Black played impressive. He had the highest defensive grade. And then, as we're talking about, the secondary is just, I think a lot of that is communication, because Michael Taft was talking in a presser a couple of weeks back, just that how the communication is so much better now. And you bring in a veteran like Makuba from, say what you will about Dabo now and how he runs Clemson, but that's a great culture, right? And you bring in Makuba, pair him with Taft. I mean, that was a match made in heaven. Like Taft was saying, like, hey, no one's running free anymore. There's no bust in the secondary, he feels like, anymore. And I think a lot of that is the athletes and then just the way they talk back there. It's just nobody's getting past us right now, and it's been really impressive to watch that turnaround year to year.
Yeah, a lot of people lost some faith in Kobe Black because Ryan Wingo got him in the scrimmage, but now everybody sees that Ryan Wingo is going to get pretty much anybody that covers him. We knew Black was a player, but then we found out, a couple of weeks ago that they wanted him to actually lean up a little bit, which means they only see him as a corner, even though he's a bigger kid. with the ability to grow into really a ridiculous safety if he wanted to be. They like him enough to where now let's make a concerted effort to keep the weight off him because he's got all the traits that they want from him in a corner.
Before we keep going, guys, we got to talk about Prize Picks. And I was telling you before we started, I've officially become a hater when it comes to how I make my selections on Prize Picks. Daily Fantasy Made Easy. I went through some of mine earlier. Ashton Genty, more than 884.5 rushing yards. And then the Penn State kicker, more than half a field goal made. Feels like an easy one. I know it's wide out. I know it's all that, but hey, it's the Penn State offense with maybe a backup quarterback versus Jim Knowles and a Ohio State defense. The other one, kind of a little bit of best of both worlds here. Tyler Shook, less than 252.5 passing yards against the Clemson Tigers. And then Nico with less than 209.5 passing yards against Kentucky. I know you like that one. So, hey, I've been up and down. I think you may be able to get a better record against this if you go ahead and make the opposite selections I do. But go ahead to Prize Picks, use the code Inside Texas. You can get $50 instantly if you play $5. It is daily fantasy made easy. It is, and I'm just going to go through the sports right now because there is literally everyone. You can get NBA, college football, NFL, the World Series for as long as it lasts, soccer, NHL. You can even get some esports, tennis, and MMA. So go ahead and hit up Prize Picks. Use the code Inside Texas. Get $50 play $5, get $50 instantly. Real quick, some of the offensive numbers. Some of these are what they are. You expect some of the main skill guys to rise to the top. The offensive line, first string, they're going to have a lot of snaps, and that includes Cole Hudson. But I think what we've seen is a wide receiver core that we thought maybe 6 or 7 deep. Probably just about 4 right now, Eric.
Yeah, 4 or 5. DeAndre Moore's playing a lot. Wingo's played a lot. Bond's been injured. Matthew Golden, first touchdown since week 2. That was good to see. I mean, there's going to be a greater distribution on offense just because they play more snaps. The defense plays well. They're not on the field a whole lot. I wonder how many defensive snaps they played last season compared to this point as a team. And then offensively, getting 70 snaps against Vanderbilt is quite the heavy lift. Alabama was held to 45. So there's a lot to distribute here. Gunnar Helm, that's not a surprise. Yeah, he's going to be on the field, whether 11 or 12 personnel, 1 tight end, 2 tight end set. So, yeah, this all makes sense and looks right. Quinn Ewers, that's actually a lot of snaps given how much time he missed.
I think Arch, and that's further down in this article on Inside Texas. You can see Ewers right there, 350. I think Arch was at like 190, 195. There he is. So, seeing different action. Are you taking anything away from this here, James?
I mean, shout out Juan Davis getting 200. People before the season might have expected Niblack to be getting more action, but if you've been following Inside Texas, I'm sure you knew Juan Davis was coming. But yeah, the wide receiver room getting shortened down. It's kind of what Sark's known for last year. I think it was like really only 4 guys had over like 300 yards last year, 500 yards. It was like he doesn't typically spread out his room a la like Sonny Dykes with TCU going like 10 deep. We thought maybe he would do that this year, but this kind of shows you that while there are so many weapons, he has his favorites. He knows his go-to guys. I mean, it's really nice to see Ryan Wingo getting in there. And then DeAndre Moore's got, 3 touchdowns on the year, I believe. So this has turned into a really good, diverse receiver room where there's just a lot of weapons, a lot of guys to go to. I would say also Trey Wisner having more snaps than Blue is something of note for sure, as he's kind of taking the lead there.
One of the things that I noticed when going through this was, you see how essential Gunnar Helm is to this whole entire operation. But you also see, Matthew Golden. Like you can see the personnel switches in real time. And that's due to, look, Juan Davis getting half the snaps just about, and DeAndre Moore. Like, they split time pretty regularly between 11 personnel or 3 wide receiver sets at the minimum, and then 2 tight end sets. And that's not diluted at all by the big tight end stuff. I know it's another YouTube show, so we get the question, surprise Cook has been phased out. What gives you any? I mean, it doesn't appear as if there's any reason for Sark to give Cook a lot of time because of what we know about how Golden, how Bond, how Wingo, and how Moore have played.
Come on. It's not about ability with Cook. I don't know what it is, but it's not about ability. Just as they'll split Bond and Wingo, they'll split Cook and Golden if they feel good about it. There's something about it that they're not liking. There's a reason he's not playing, but I don't think it's ability. So that's why that's a function of Golden having so many snaps is they're not playing Cook. Whereas Bond has not only been hurt, but they split him with Wingo as well. DeAndre and Cook could also play behind DeAndre Moore too. They're just not playing them. They've got their reasons for it. Whatever they are, they should probably stay in the locker room.
These are the guys that haven't seen 100 snaps. Any real surprises here? These are all scholarship guys. There have been a few walk-ons that have seen time, but any big surprises between Gibson, Nyblack, Spencer Shannon, Ryan Niblett, Jordan Washington, Parker Livingstone, and Velton Gardner?
I mean, if you went by the first couple games, you would think that Jared Gibson would be getting more play at this point. Amari Nyblack, we thought would get more than he has. We're starting to see him, at least starting last week. But we knew that he was running third tight end coming into the season. Juan Davis had jumped him. Now I'm not surprised by any of the other guys. I mean, wide receivers we already talked about that. Niblett's playing running back pretty much full time. Spencer Shannon's a year away. None of that surprises me outside of Jared Gibson first, and then maybe Nyblack.
The only one that I'm a little bit, I think we need to get from Steve Sarkisian what's going on with Velton Gardner. And I know he's very protective about injury info, but like, you brought that guy in for all the injuries, and here he is being injured. The real instructive stuff, I think, was like kind of the backup offensive line counts. Kind of reveals not only a little bit about each spot, but a little bit of the depth chart as well. We all know Kelvin Banks leading the way. Trevor Gooseby right there, 47 in the limited snaps. Malik Agbo right behind him. And I'm curious if there were some instances of that big 2 tight end set, if that's what Pro Football Focus qualified that as.
No, I haven't seen him wearing 80 this year. Have you?
If it was a blowout and he was playing left tackle, I was probably trying to finish my story and get something ready for right when the whistle blew, so I would not have noticed. Left guard, Cole Hudson, kind of bouncing a little bit between both, but Neto there right behind. And you see the other thing, the backups, 47. We can go to Connor Robertson, 57, so a few more. Anything from left tackle, left guard stand out to y'all as far as what the second string looks like?
Nope. We know what the second string is coming in the season, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
Connor Robertson, Hayden Connor with 4 from center. Cole Hudson, that's the other thing. Like, there are 6 starters, and Cole Hudson sees his time. Jaden Chapman on inside, maybe that's something. And then Brandon Baker, I think that's indicative of the faith they have in him. So we've got a lot of great questions from y'all. We talked about Florida a little bit. Lagway may be battered and bruised next week. He's a tough kid, but I think Georgia will keep the heat on him. I think Eric, and correct me if I'm wrong, because are familiar with him as a prospect a lot better than I am. Like, the upside with him is that he can push the ball way downfield and he can steal yards on the ground. And especially with Graham Mertz out, I feel like this is one of those situations where we're really going to see Lagway's arm over the next couple weeks.
Yeah, he reminds of a other former Florida quarterback, Cam Newton. Obviously, Cam made his name at Auburn, but he started off at Florida. He's just a big, strong, powerful guy. Can run it, can throw it. Everything he does is powerful. Throws it down the field powerfully, runs it powerfully. He's extremely well built. Kind of like a super Sam Ellinger, maybe. He's got the leadership intangibles that I think Sam had. So yeah, he's going to be great in time. I don't know. It's not going to be this weekend. It's probably not going to be the following weekend. But he's got the ability to become great. Will it be at Florida? I don't know. Will it be next year? I don't know. But it's going to be a learning curve for him. That's a tough defense to go against early in your career, back to back too. Georgia and Texas. Good Lord. But he's got all the ability in the world. We'll see. They're showing some signs, at least some signs of life. Napier's seat has gone from molten hot lava to slightly less molten hot lava, whatever that would be. But I don't know. He's gonna have a tough week, I believe, a tough 2 weeks. But he's got greatness written all over him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we expect a lot out of him in the future, just because of what a specimen he was and the recruit he was. But outside of that Samford game, I mean, he's 2 TDs to 5 INTs. I would imagine if you're going to kind of look down the road, kind of compare maybe the Tennessee game to what he'll get over the next couple weeks. Like, he'll probably be trying to do some things on the ground, but I just don't know that he'll be able to be in a position with Florida, because they just have a lesser team going up in both those games, where you're going to be able to see him display all of his dynamic ability. I think it's going to be tough sledding over the next couple of weeks. Florida got back on track a little bit, but it was against lesser competition. So yeah, I mean, Lagway, I'm not too worried about him. And his roaster says, like, yeah, I think he is going to get beat up a little bit over the next couple of weeks, particularly against Georgia this week.
They could have won at Tennessee, but Billy Napier, how do I make this PG? He backed out of it. They could have tried to win that game and elected not to. So.
Oh, well, Mark Stoops against Georgia.
Oh, man, basketball season's right around the corner, right, James?
Yeah, they're only ranked I think they're ranked lower than Texas, actually, preseason in Kentucky basketball.
I hear that. We'll get to that in a little bit, maybe. This from Scott MR 512. I know we like to see the edges make sacks, but I feel like Moore, Burke, and Sorrell are very good at setting the edge. I feel like Simmons has some room to learn there, but when he goes, he goes. Eric, you've been singing the praises of Barron Sorrell for a long time, and as someone who just makes this defense do a lot of great things because of what he brings to that jack position.
Man, he's about as reliable as it gets on defense. Great guy in the locker room, great guy in the weight room. Just one of the 5 or 6 leaders of the team, really. Strong at the point of attack, tough to move. But really, that's why he's going to get drafted. He'll get drafted as a guy that's probably playing first and second down. I don't know if he'll be out there on third downs in the league, but he's going to play. He's a tough guy to move, strong, good motor, and just really reliable. Coaches love reliable guys. You feel comfortable calling a play that leans a lot on Barron because he's going to do his job.
James, what do you think on this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we've been harping on. Is just that's the one thing Simmons has obviously room to improve. I mean, the kid's 19 years old. You expect that. Burke has really been great on that. Moore showed that more so against Vanderbilt, and Barron Sorrell. I mean, probably Eric's favorite player aside from Vernon Broughton. But Sorrell is just great, and that's what you expect from a graduate senior guy who's been in the program. He's a multiple sack guy in multiple years, so it's just he's one of those guys who's doing everything right when it comes to running against the run, and also he's thrown in some sacks on the pass rush. So Sorrell is just all around he's tight player who just knows what he's doing.
It's interesting that Moore plays the run so well because you would think it's lack of length that maybe it's keeping him from becoming a great pass rusher as he steps up in competition, but it really hasn't bothered him versus the run. He plays the run very intelligently.
Oh, Joe, you got yourself muted.
Dang it. Aaron, click. Before we keep on going, though, got to give some love to our other sponsor, that is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
Thank you to Laura. Thank you to LC. Thank you to David Keith Williams for joining again. Eric, he's pointing this one your way. As fans, including myself, there are plays many think could benefit Texas, but it seems as if Coach Sarkisian does not have them in the playbook. And let me get his other comment here. What's your view about tight end seams, running back middle screens, and wheel routes benefiting Texas? I know that they have wheel routes because I've seen Sark give a whole entire clinic on mesh, and that read one is the wheel.
Yeah, they run wheels a lot.
Read 2 is the out route. But what about some of these other plays that our buddy doesn't think is there right now?
And I have not seen Texas run very good running back middle screens going back about 4 coaches now. But the one that has stuck out to me a lot is the seam routes, lack of seam routes when you have a guy like Gunnar Helm. I think it's, they just like to leak him out into coverage and use him as a constraint receiver more often than not, it seems, as opposed to being a primary guy down the middle of the field. We've never seen that. We didn't even see that a ton with Jatavian Sanders. Remember, Jatavian Sanders only had 2 touchdowns all last year. I think Helm had 2 himself. For the amount of catches they had, I think they combined for 60. To only have 4 touchdowns is not all that much, especially when you factor in Texas's red zone issues last season. For one reason, I don't know why they don't use it. I'm sure Sark has his reasons. I don't know enough about the game to get into Sark's brain, but I've wondered about that as well, because I think Gunnar Helm, even though I don't think Gunnar Helm is the most sudden athlete we've seen at tight end position, but he's got a lot of length and good hands to go up and get the ball as well. So that has been one that surprised me. But they run running back wheel routes, rail routes quite a bit. That's they had receptions on that just this past weekend, so that's not a concern. I think, and this goes to some of the other questions we've had in here. That was not the full Sark game plan against Vandy. He had it really. He had a lot of his calls muted. I think some of that was just they didn't feel like they needed it versus Vandy. I think some of that was just a game to get Quinn confidence. I think that was the whole design of that game plan. Saw a lot of easy throws and saw a lot of plays where the guys were just out athleting Vanderbilt. They had a huge advantage in that regard, and I think Sark took it. Got his ass to the bye week and is now going to go back into kind of rethinking what the offense does best and how to design around the offensive strengths.
One of the things that Helm does, and recall that Iowa State touchdown last year, and maybe even the touchdown against Oklahoma last year. It's that little leak pattern where he'll block, run a little out route, and then boom, he's running up the side almost on the same trajectory as a wheel route.
Yeah, Sark likes to make it where about 3 different defensive guys have to have eyes on Helm at some point during the route. Somebody's going to lose them, and we've seen them. It's a constraint. Everybody's focused around the wide receivers that are more explosive, and they leak them out into coverage, and it's really just a play call. I think it was not Jimbo. It was Kirby Smart was talking about Helm. And, yes, he's a good player, good blocker, all that, but he also benefits a lot from play calling. And I think, the focus on the skill players. So I think that might play into a reason why they don't run as many seams. But, I think he's got the ability to go up and get the ball. He's got a size advantage in the back end too.
I mean,
and whatever they're doing is clearly working because he's leading the team in receptions and yards. So I think kind of to your point, it's when you have all these weapons and the speed on the outside, it makes sense to just dump underneath like a little leak route to Helm, and we see him great, doing a great job yards after catch wise. So I don't know that they're necessarily going to get vertical with the tight end anytime soon, but what they're doing for Helm is working, and he's being more productive than I think anybody anticipated.
And like the snap count shows, like the starting O linemen are above 500. He's next at 487. Like
I
he
do
is
think
viewed
I do think they'll get more vertical with Jordan Washington and Nick Townsend. Otherwise, there's no point in having tight ends like that. And he mentioned that they put in Niblack to get more of a vertical threat as well. Even though I've never known Juan Davis to lack the athleticism to do that. We'll see if we see more of that coming up down the last 4 games. But it is something that I've wondered about.
bye weeks are always kind of the time where it's like, okay, we take stock of everything, and there's some basic questions. And I do like this one. What's the strength of the Longhorn offense right now?
That's
running backs, right?
The receiving personnel. And the problem with that is the receiving personnel is dependent on your force multipliers being ideally your offensive line and your quarterback. And so they're kind of reliant on the offensive line buying them time, B, the offensive line creating a run game that relieves pressure on the passing game, and then C, your quarterback taking advantage of the run game and the offensive line buying them time. Right now, blitzes are getting home, so they have not been able to fully take advantage of the wide receivers. But going back to this past game, I don't think they were really focused on pushing the ball down the field. Ian Boyd's going to have a great article on that in the morning. He got his hands on some all-22 tape to see just how Vanderbilt was defending Texas and how Sark was countering that defense. Really, Sark wasn't even trying. He made it easy on Vanderbilt as far as defending the deep part of the field, but Texas just feasted underneath and to the sidelines pretty much all game. So there's rhymes and reasons for Sark there. That's why we talked about it in the offseason. The all gas, no brakes moniker does not always apply. It's a good soundbite. It made a lot of sense when they came in from Alabama averaging 50 points a game. But that's not what we've really seen from Sark in his time at Texas. I think all gas, no brakes truly stands for every day focused on getting better throughout the offseason, throughout the season. It's a program mindset. I don't think it's necessarily a game day mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen Sark take more of almost an NFL approach with his underneath passing and just taking what's easy. People now are talking about the ADOT. Everyone's talking about the average depth of target this week, trying to use that to, dog on Quinn a little bit. But in the first part of the season, Quinn had one of the lowest ADOTs as well, and people were praising him because he's making that easy read. And like we're saying, it's just they probably didn't, open up the full playbook to play against Vandy. They were just taking what was easy, getting Quinn. That's why you see 17 straight completions in the second half there. But yeah, the strength is definitely in the receiver room, and hopefully we'll get to see that fully on display as Quinn settles back in and gets back comfortable in the offense as we saw at the beginning part of the season.
Would y'all rather have a great ADOT or a higher completion percentage? And I know that lacks a lot of context, but like I would take 17 straight completions knowing what the Texas offense is over bump up in ADOT. Well, what if those targets all fall incomplete?
Well, that's going to depend on who they're playing too. If they're not getting all that yak against Georgia, otherwise you would have just done that to Georgia. If it's so easy, you just do it every week. So every week is going to have a different feel to it. Here's a good one. Listening to Coach Shipley on another channel. Yesterday, he made a great point about Texas running the bunch formation, which is not good for protection, run more spread. Yes, if you go to our video on Monday morning, or Tuesday morning, I should say, we had a lot of video discussing this. And some of it was just receivers not running the same route, not on the same page with the quarterback, sometimes Quinn not finding it. There are ways to beat that and create more space. So I don't necessarily agree with Coach Shipley on that, although what he's saying makes sense in theory. But there's a lot of ways to make defenses pay for trying to come after the quarterback. Those receivers can find space in a hurry. They've got a speed advantage against almost everybody. I think the coordination between the quarterback and the wide receivers when in bunch needs to be on the better page, and they also need to recognize and diagnose a lot quicker. That's part of the problem. Is I think they're just not doing what they've been coached to do. Execution, I think, is an issue there.
The thing with the bunch is that it very much declares a secondary. Like, what you're going to see from the back end once you have all that close. But then, like you mentioned, it falls on the offensive line to react to what's coming and make sure they can get everything there. What do you think on that, James?
Yeah, I mean, like on the blitzing, it hasn't been great in the last two weeks of diagnosing it. Quinn's perspective, from Quinn's point, on Quinn's part, and then also on the O-line's part, there's been some misdiagnosing of blitzes, which hasn't been great. because we even saw on the famous corner blitz strip sack that really turned the tide of that game. He had an underneath route, right? So, I mean, if you're getting blitzed and you've got man coverage, how many guys can keep up with Bond or Wingo if you just send them on a quick drag? So I think we definitely just need to see some better reads from quarterback and offensive line on diagnosing blitzes.
Got this one. I like this from Paxton. If Texas has 10 penalties again, what's the fix? Win sprints.
Bear crawls across the field. We used to do that.
Exactly.
So we haven't not. This is another one of my few pet peeves. Is we've never really seen penalties punished with like lack of playing time. At least I haven't really noticed it. I get why it used to be the case when they lacked the depth, but now that you can't say that they don't have depth. So I don't get it. And some of the penalties were BS. That hold on Helm was costly, but that was BS. But pull Warren Roberson. What's he doing out there? He doesn't. I mean, there's been times where they should have pulled Hayden Connor, man. Throw Neto out there for a series. We came into the season talking about how great experience was, the veteran team and all that. But when you have 10 penalties, something's not right. In the prep week, something's not right with their focus for that game. That should not happen with the team as experienced as Texas is.
I agree up to the offensive line. Like, because that unit is so cohesion based, it sucks, but you just kind of have to ride it out. Because what are you going to do? Put Brandon Baker at right tackle?
I mean, it's maybe.
I think I'm with you on Warren Roberson. I'm with you on
one series isn't going to kill you on offensive line. Come on, that's. And Cam is first year of experience. I mean, the example I use is Hayden Connor, and it's pre-snap penalties, which we've seen too many of in his career. I get it when Jake Majors does it. You don't really want to put a new center in there, but I think you gotta send a message. They rotate so much on defense; it's not going to kill you to do a little bit on offense.
Well, especially against let's say we get up against Florida or so. These lesser games, maybe you don't want to mess with that when you're playing Georgia or earlier in the season when we saw Cam Williams get that penalty against Michigan. But yeah, oh yeah, I guess it was multiple, but they were really reassuring him, giving him some love. But it has become a problem in these past few weeks. Just kind of hit us out of nowhere. It would be nice to see more of like, hey, you screw up, you're out. Like Sark isn't necessarily in the same position as say Kalen DeBoer, where people have talked about some of the stuff they've had going on with undisciplined players, and DeBoer doesn't quite have that depth that he will have in 3-4 years like Sark has now, for example. So he's got to put up with some of that crap. But when Sark has the talent and depth that he does right now, when you go 2-3 deep, 4 and 5 stars at most positions, sub someone out and knock some sense into him and let them know that you get punished when you screw up. Because 10 penalties, against Vanderbilt, that'll slide. But in Kyle Field, that would be a problem.
Does Texas have refs in practice? Yes, they got guys wearing the zebra stripes there. I think they get them from TASO. So they've got guys who come in and, are looking at it like a referee would, maybe not like a SEC ref would, but at the same time, it's guys who know what holding looks like, know what grabbing outside the pads looks like, et cetera, et cetera. SEC refs hate us because of the bottles. Do y'all think that has an effect?
No. That would mean it would have to come from up high. There's just no way. There's no way the SEC refs in a game that they didn't even have are going to care about that.
And this also speaks to your point. They can't run a kickoff back without a penalty. Yeah, and that's been on Warren Roberson over and over and over and over again. So,
Jeff Banks is still a special teams guru. We're not going to do this thing where we just totally forget about his time at Texas, his time at A&M, his time at Alabama. That's not because of Warren Roberson holding calls.
Last thing, Roaster, not to jump ahead, can we focus on the headset encryption topic? Roaster, I know you're on Inside Texas. Everybody else who's watching this should come over to Inside Texas. I know there's an active thread. Our buddy Max Olson put out a good article about that on ESPN, and something I thought was buttoned up is obviously not. Been some issues with it in the Big 12 and in Jerry World. So just hope that Texas doesn't have to play at a Big 12 team or in the Cotton Bowl. But we'll talk about that over on the Inside Texas message boards. That is a place you should go. Head to Inside Texas, sign up. You will be able to get all the best insight whether that is upcoming team info ahead of the Florida game, recruiting intel. Got to have some great stuff as we are 5 weeks away from National Signing Day. And of course, the transfer portal and more. So make sure you head over there. Also, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate everybody joining. Eric, thank you. James, thank you. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.